Yeah, I want to welcome us once again to this fourth module of this personal leadership journey in a transformative roundtable discussion or conversation. Today, we want to focus on the module that is titled Becoming a Growth-Oriented Leader. That is, how can you become a growth-oriented leader? Basically, we are going to be looking at 4 different topics under this module. We're going to look at the attitude and footprints of a growth-minded leader, and that is what we are going to look into now. But then we're also going to look into intentional growth adventure from humble starts. How can we be intentional in our growth adventure, and how do we start small? That is what that is talking about. Then we're also going to study, or we are going to study another topic, which is personal capacity development and effectiveness through a growth plan. That is, how can we enhance our personal capacity, and how can we enhance that through a growth plan? And finally, we are going to look at everyday personal rules for exponential growth. So those are the 4 different topics that we are going to look at in this module 4, which is the module that talks about becoming a growth-oriented leader. Now, today, at this hour, we want to talk about the attitude and footprint of a growth-minded leader. I'm sure you must have heard people say, your attitude is what determines your attitude. And we are going to see the practicality of that saying in this lesson. That is, the kind of attitude that you have is what determines what you eventually become in life. Some people say that attitude is everything, but that is not completely true. Attitude cannot be everything, because you may have a good attitude, but if you don't have a good skill, your attitude may not help you out in that sense. You need a balance of both attitude and a good skill to be able to make something positive out of your life. For example, no matter how good attitude your friend has, if he's not a surgeon, if you have a problem, you will never go to him, because he always have a good attitude for him to perform surgery on you. No, you don't go to somebody because the person has a good attitude to perform surgery on you. You would rather go to somebody who is skillful, who is a skillful surgeon to perform that role. So we want to talk about what is attitude, and I want to be as practical as possible. If you look into my right-hand side, you will see a glass cup of water. So we're going to talk about how attitude actually works. Now, attitude, by definition, is your behavior towards life events. It is expressed by our body language and by the looks on our faces. So the way you look, the kind of gesture you put on, these are what determines your attitude. And we are going to look at the subject of attitude by focusing on practical examples and illustration on how to measure your attitude and how it actually works in real life situation. Now, here is a glass cup of water. Now, if I ask you to describe this water, do you want to say this glass cup of water is half empty or half full? You can put your answer on the chat box, or you can just open you can also unmute and just tell us what your opinion is. Is this cup of water half empty or half full? Yes, I'm expecting us to respond. Is this cup of water? I believe, oh, we can't see the cup of water. Can we see the cup of water? Oh, we cannot see the cup of water. Oh my God. Okay, but in the other, oh my God. Okay. Okay, just imagine that you have a cup of half a cup of water in your presence. Is the cup of water half empty or half full? Is it half empty or half full? How do you want to describe it? You can unmute and speak. Just imagine you have a cup of water that is halfway. Do you want to describe it as half full or half empty? How do you want to describe it? Please, we need to talk so that we can move very fast.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
It's a two-way thing.
Yeah.
It's just like we having a 6 and 9 turned in opposite direction. Yeah. So it depends on how you are seeing it. It depends on how you are viewing it.
Yeah.
To some, you might be seeing 6. To another person will be saying 9. So it depends on your perspective. To me, so if you have a glass cup that has water and is halfway, yeah. So it's either you say is a half glass of water, or you said it's half empty. So it depends on your perception to what you are saying. So that's my own contribution.
You know what I would have done if we were to be in an elementary school? I would have had the whole class to give you a round of applause. That is perfect. That is exactly what I want to hear from you. But let me also say that if you say it is half empty, you have not told lie. Because truly speaking, isn't it half empty? It is. Looking at it, you can see that it's halfway, the middle of the glass of water. And if you want to say it's half full, you are not also wrong, because it's not completely empty and it's not yet full. So you can say it's half full. So it all depends on your perspective, just like our speaker said. Everything depends on perspective. And that is the point I'm trying to get out when it comes to our attitude. Attitude is a function of perception, is a function of perspective, is a function of the lens through which you are looking into the world. So, and everything about us, we usually look at it from our own worldview. For example, the world is not the way it is. The world is the way you are. It is the way you are, that is how you see the world, not the way the world is. Because it is possible for us to see the same thing, but have different perception. And that is what attitude is. Now, I'm going to illustrate this point that we are making about attitude by telling you the story of a two salesmen who were sent on an island to sell shoes. The first salesman, upon arriving, was shocked to see no one wearing shoe. He was shocked to see no one wearing shoe in the island. So he decided to send a telegram to the head office and say, I am coming home tomorrow, because it is obvious that in this island, nobody wears shoes. But the second salesman, upon getting to that island, he was very thrilled because he saw opportunity everywhere. He saw everybody in the island not wearing shoes. I said, wow, this is a great opportunity to make great sales. And immediately, he sent a wire to the home office and told them, he said, please send me 10,000 shoes. Everyone in this island needs them. Can you see the situation on ground? Two salesmen, the same place, from the same office, but one was able to see opportunity. The other was only able to see problem. And yet it is the same scenario. It is exactly the same thing, but they are coming up with different solutions. So that is how our perspective influences our attitude towards life. Now, let me also tell you another story of a bumblebee. I don't know how many of us have seen a bumblebee before. A bumblebee, if you look at the shape of a bumblebee, according to the theory of aerodynamics, should not be able to fly because of its size, because of its weight, and because of the shape of his body in relationship to the total wing spread. Bumblebee is not expected to fly. But however, because of a good attitude, bumblebee flies anyway. Scientifically speaking, bumblebee should not be able to fly. It should have been impossible for a bumblebee to fly. But you know something? Bumblebee is ignorant of these scientific facts and this scientific theory. And because he's ignorant of this scientific theory, bumblebee flies anyway, making honey every day of his life. Now, what is the moral lesson of these stories that I've shared with you? The moral lesson of these stories is that with good and positive attitude, you too can make honey every day of your life. You don't have to wake up any day and believe that that is the worst day for you. You can make any day your masterpiece. You can make every day your masterpiece. But what will make that to happen is your attitude towards each day. So why should I possess a good attitude? Why should I possess a good attitude? Now, the most important choice that a man can ever have is to choose his attitude regardless of the circumstances he is confronted with. we will all have the opportunity to choose our attitude. Your attitude is not going to be automatic. It has to be intentionally decided, or it has to be intentionally decided upon. We will have that opportunity every day of our life to choose our attitude. And I also wish to let you know that it is our surroundings, the influences we have in our environment. These are the things that determines our attitude. And these are the things that controls how high we fly in life. So therefore, our surroundings always controls our soaring. Now, this is one of the this aspect is one of the aspects my wife loves to hear whenever I'm speaking about attitude. And the rhyme is this: talky thinking plus talky talk equals talky walk. And that rhyme was made by John C. Maxwell. That is, when you think like a turkey and you talk like a turkey, you will end up walking like a turkey. Naturally speaking, turkey has every quality that should make it to fly like any other bird. But turkey lost the ability to fly because is encountered with turkey thinking and turkey talk. And because it's encountered, or because it's encountered with turkey thinking and turkey talk, he ends up becoming, or he ends up only experiencing a turkey walk. So if you want to fly and soar to the highest altitude in life, you need to change your thinking. You need to change your language. And when your thinking and your language are being positively influenced, then it will influence the outcome that you will get in life. Now, I'm going to make illustration through two laws. The first law was propounded by Murphy, and we call it Murphy law. The second law was propounded by Maxwell, and we call it Maxwell law. Now, Murphy law says nothing is as easy as it looks. Isn't that true? There is nothing in life that is as easy as it looks. Everything takes longer than you expect. That is true sometimes. And if anything can go wrong, it will, and at the worst possible moment. That is what Murphy law says. And remember, at the beginning of this class, we said that attitude is all about your perspective. It's all about how you see the world. Now, according to the Murphy law, this is how some people see the world. They believe that nothing is as easy as it looks. Everything takes longer than you expect, that if anything can go wrong, it will at the worst possible moment. Period. That is some people's perspective to life. But I want to let you know that that is not the only valid perspective that you can have. You can have another perspective. And what is that other perspective? That other perspective is what we call the Maxwell law. And what does the Maxwell law say? Maxwell law says nothing is as hard. Nothing is as hard as it looks. Everything is more rewarding than you expect. And if anything can go right, it will at best possible moment. Now look at the same thing. Look at the issue. Somebody is looking at it from a negative point of view. The other person is looking at it from a positive point of view. Now, for those who are persuaded by Murphy's approach, they will oftentimes look at issues from a negative point of view. But for those who are persuaded with the approach of Maxwell, they will look at it from the positive side point of view. So what do you do with these two laws? Because those two laws are valid. They are the truth, they are the reality of life. But what do you do about them? What you do with those laws is to balance your attitude with positive affirmation and possibility mentality. That is what you should do when you are confronted with the tension that these two laws brings into our reality. We should balance our attitude with positive affirmation and possibility mentality. So how do you rate your attitude against your aptitude? Now, I remember at the beginning of this class, I said if you have a surgery to make, you will not go to your friend because he has a good attitude. You will probably go to a doctor who has been well trained in that surgery that you want to undergo. So in that sense, attitude may not even count for anything. So sometimes attitude alone does not produce result. You need a mix of attitude plus aptitude to produce results sometimes. So how do you rate your attitude against your aptitude? Now, I'm going to make some quotes that are made by some great men. Number one was made by Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein says, intellectual growth should commence at birth and cease only at death. So that means if you must be a winner in life, don't wait till when you are 40 before you begin to say you want to start doing the right thing. No, you have to start right from the day you are well aware of your environment. You have to start at the very first day. You have the awareness of your environment. Now, for me, my personal growth and development, I started intentionally when I turned 19. Well, it wasn't too bad, but for me, that was too late. I would have loved it if I had started earlier, maybe like when I was 10 years or 12 years. I would have appreciated it if I started that early enough. But don't ever wait until when you are 40 before you begin to do the right thing in your life. Start early. And that is the point Albert Einstein is trying to make. With your good attitude, you have to start early. Intellectual growth should commence at birth and only cease at death. And for some people, once they graduate from the university, they think there is no need to go to school again. Please don't be counted among such people. We must continually possess a lifelong learner's attitude towards our capacity development. We have to develop that attitude because it is very, very crucial for who we eventually become in life. Another point is delivering a better result requires improving your talent, which requires ongoing learning and professional development. If you want to deliver a better result, you have to keep improving your talent. No matter how good your attitude is, if you are not improving on your talent, you can never get a better outcome. So you have to continue to experience ongoing learning and professional development if you must have a better outcome in your life. And Ralph Waldo Emerson made this powerful.
That milk can invite you and see.
Uh,
Okay.
Ralph Waldo Emerson made this powerful assertion. He said, if a man can write a better book, or preach a better sermon, or make a better mousetrap than his neighbor, even if he builds his house in the wood, the world will make a beating path to his door. Ralph Waldo Emerson. So whatever you do, make sure you are the best at it. And when you are the best at whatever you do, people will build a path to your house. And all this boils down to you having a good attitude and also continuing to have a good attitude towards your capacity development. Alfred Toffler says the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So the illiterate are not going to be those who cannot read and write, because oftentimes we always believe that if you cannot read and write, you are an illiterate. But Alfred Toffler says those are not the illiterate of the 21st century. The illiterate of the 21st century are those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So you have to keep learning. You have to keep building yourself. You have to keep building yourself. Now, John Wayne also says this. He said, life is tough, but it's tougher if you are stupid. You see, there is no way you would think that attitude is everything. So that is the belief of some people. They believe that once you have a good attitude, that's all that you need. But that is not it. When you possess a good attitude, you also need to match it with an improved skill to be able to get a better result. So what do you do? Or what do you like to talk about or sing about? What in life gives you immeasurable pleasure? Those could be clues to what you have been called to do. But it will only take a great attitude to unlock them. Derwin Jones says, a bird sings not because it has an answer, but because it has a song. So here is how good attitude brings positive change. This is how good attitude brings positive change. Now, let me tell you the story of a bumblebee. Sorry, just give me a moment. Sorry for that break in transmission. It's my daughter that is trying to distract me. Now, here is how good attitude brings positive change. Now, I'm going to tell you the story of a Chinese bamboo tree. Well, for those of us who don't know what Chinese bamboo tree is the same thing as the bamboo tree that we have in Nigeria or in West Africa. Sometimes I wonder why they call it Chinese bamboo tree when we have it all over the places in Africa. Now, the story of a Chinese bamboo tree goes this way. When you plant a Chinese bamboo tree, for the first 4 years, you plant it, you water it, you fertilize it, you put water on it, sun shines on it, nothing happens to Chinese bamboo tree. The first year, you did the same thing. The second year, you did the same thing. The third year, you did the same thing. The fourth year. But do you know something about Chinese bamboo tree? After the fourth year, something begins to happen. By the fifth year, the Chinese bamboo tree, in 6 weeks, after 6 weeks, in the fifth year, the Chinese bamboo tree can grow as high as 90 feet in just 4 years, and in just 6 weeks in the fifth year. That is how best I can illustrate how our consistency with our good attitude can bring a positive change in our life. Now, if the farmer had, out of annoyance, removed the bamboo tree the first year, the second year, even the fourth year, for not producing, for not growing and developing, it would have meant nothing there. But because the farmer kept faith in the Chinese bamboo tree through a good, positive attitude, in the fifth year, in just 6 weeks, bamboo tree will grow from 4 feet to over 80 to 90 feet tall. That is how powerful our attitude can be sometimes in our life. I'm sure we have heard it often said many times. We don't really know who first said it, that the only thing that is constant in life is change. Now, this is my own understanding, that if we realize this, that the only thing that is constant in life is change, then we will maintain a healthy attitude towards life. If we truly realize this, we will maintain a healthy attitude towards life. Now, another quote from Linda Bequest and Alan Carr, which illustrates how good attitude can bring positive change, says that paradigm shifting happens when people have new information that makes them see the world differently, or when they begin to ask fresh questions that are based on the needs and opportunity presented by new realities. We will begin to experience positive change. When we begin to experience paradigm shifts. And how does paradigm shift happens? When we have new information that enables us to see the world differently. When we begin to ask fresh questions. So that is why I always love people to question the status quo. Things must not continue the way they are. We must always ask, can there be any other way we can do these things? We always have to question the status quo. And when we do, we will have new opportunity presented to us by new realities. Now, bringing it home, what fresh and new perspective are you bringing into your calling and life assignment? I know you have a calling. I know you have an assignment to fulfill in life, but what is the fresh perspective you are bringing into it? What new insight are you bringing into it? Somebody said, and I quote, he said, "We do not always see the world as it is, but as we are." When you see the world, you are not seeing the world as it is. You are seeing the world just the way you are. And so that is why it is important for us to see correctly. How do you fire up your attitude? My own understanding is that we can fire up our attitude. But to fire up our attitude, how do we do it? Number one, by taking a delightsome interest in what you truly love to do. When you take a delightsome interest in what you truly love to do, what you are doing is that you are firing up your attitude. You have to be careful what you set your hands on, for it will surely come true. If you pay attention to something for too long, believe me honestly, that will eventually come true for you, either positive or negative. So you have to be careful what you put your mind on all the time. Number two, how to fire up your attitude: by surrounding yourself with positive people, because attitude is contagious. When you surround yourself with people that are positive, you will experience positive moments, because attitude are very contagious. There are two keys that determines who we are. Number one, who you conceive yourself to be. Number two, whom you associate with. Those are the two things that determines who you are, who you relate with, and what you conceive yourself to be. And John Maxwell also says, another way we can fire up our attitude, John Maxwell says, by failing forward and by failing fast. That is another way to fire up your attitude, by failing forward and by failing fast. Mistake marks the road to success. He who makes no mistakes makes no progress. That was a quote from John Maxwell. In the road to success, it is filled with mistakes. If you don't want to make a mistake in life, you cannot make success out of life. For you to make success out of life, you have to encounter failures often. But when you encounter your failure, make sure that your failure is always teaching you something. And when you do it often, and you do it very fast, you become successful at the end of the day. Another way to fire up your attitude is by maintaining a healthy attitude. You have to maintain a healthy attitude. John Wooden says, things turn out best for people who make the best of the way things turn out. So you have to maintain a good and a healthy attitude. Now, I have this quote from John Maxwell again, but I've tried to paraphrase it. That he says, if you want to be miserable, look within. And what is that telling us? That is, when you focus on your limited ability and you are not willing to get help, you become miserable in life. If you want to be beaten, look back. What does that mean? It means when you believe that your best years are in your past, then you will surely be beaten in life. Then it says, if you want to be inattentive, look around. What does that mean? It means that when you allow yourself to be distracted, then you will be inattentive. Then if you want to be apprehensive, it says, look ahead. What does that mean? It means when you allow yourself to be anxious, you will be apprehensive. And finally, if you want to be successful, he said you should look up. What does that mean? It means that you need to focus on what I call the G factor. The G factor for me is the God factor. So this is what John Maxwell says, and I've tried to, that was not the exact way he said it, but I've tried to paraphrase it to illustrate it in my own understanding. So why is attitude a determinant of your altitude? Why is your attitude a determinant of your altitude? Now, if you will change your thinking, then you can change your life. When we can learn to give thanks, we are learning to concentrate not on the bad things, but on the good things in our life. This was a quote given by Amy Vanderbilt. Said, if you want to change your thinking, or if you will change your thinking, you can change your life. When we can learn to give thanks, we are learning to concentrate not only on bad things, but on the good things in our life. And that is why attitude can sometimes determine our attitude. By just doing that which is right all the time, by just maintaining that positive mental attitude all the time. Now, I want to ask you at this point again, by raising up my glass of water and asking you, is your glass cup of water still half empty or half full? What is your answer? Your answer boils down to your perception of the world around you. Which lenses are you using to see the world? For me, my glass is half full, and I hope it is the same for you. Now, John Maxwell says, life is 10% what happens to me, and 90% how I react to it. Now, we are talking about how attitude determines our altitude. When you don't know how to relate with what happens to you, it will affect how you react to things. And in real life setting, life is only 10% what happens to us. Oftentimes, it is how we react to it that determines our outcome in life. John C. Maxwell also says, all things being equal, attitude wins. All things not being equal, attitude sometimes wins. So that is why whether you are a surgeon or you are not a surgeon, even if you are a surgeon, if you are a good surgeon, you need a good attitude to be able to do your job well. And if you are somebody who has a good attitude already, you need to add skill to your attitude so that you can do better. In whatever way you find yourself, you always need to maintain a good attitude to end up experiencing high altitude in life. So what are the perils of possessing a wrong attitude? Now we want to talk about the danger, the potential danger that one can face when we have a wrong attitude. John Maxwell says the approach of many people because of a wrong attitude is if at first you don't succeed, they destroy all the evidences that you've ever tried. Personally, I would say that speaks about me. Initially, when I started out in life, if I set out to do something and I did not succeed in it, I wouldn't even want people to know that I ever tried that thing. But I think I am more matured now because I have come to realize that when I do something and I don't succeed in it, it's only teaching me something that in the future, if I want to engage the same thing, I will not do it the same way I did it at first. Of course, I would devise a better way to do the thing. So don't always destroy the evidences that you've ever tried something before. Learn something from your failure, because your failure always has some great things or some great lessons to teach you. The peril of possessing a wrong failure. The first major battle that we need to confront is the feeling of inertia. Once you are able to overcome that feeling of inability to take action, of inability to take a step, of inability to move forward, once you are able to break that cycle, then your success will be inevitable. So when we are confronted with certain situations, we need to be able to break that feeling of inertia. That needs to avoid change. We need to break that feeling, because if we do so, or if we don't do so, if we don't break that feeling of inertia, we will end up in frustration, we will end up in misery, we will end up in failure, we will end up in pain, and eventually we will end up in defeat. So my advice to you is break free from that inertia, that inaction, that inability to take a step. You need to break away from it. John Maxwell says attitude is the determining factor of whether our failures makes us or breaks us. If you will be made in life, it will be dependent on your attitude. If you will fail in life, it will be dependent on your attitude. So both ways, it is your attitude that determines your lot in life. And Douglas MacArthur says, there is no security on this earth. There is only opportunities. So anytime you look into the world from this moment, I want you to begin to see opportunity everywhere. When you are given an assignment to do, see it as an opportunity for growth and development. Don't always look for the easy way out. See opportunity in everything that God brings your way. So how do you overcome a bad attitude? I'm going to tell you 4 things that you need to do to overcome a bad attitude. Number 1, you need to overcome a bad attitude by having the expectation of a better days ahead. That is, you have to anticipate for a better days ahead. Frank Lloyd Wright was asked, which of your work would you select as your best architectural masterpiece? And at the time they were asking this question, he was already 83. Do you know the answer, the reply he gave? He said, my next one. Wow, that speaks so much about our attitude and about his own attitude. He didn't even say the current one. He said, my next one. That is a very good attitude. And mind you, this was a man who was already 83 years old, but he still believes that his greatest architectural masterpiece is still ahead of him. So you have to anticipate for better days ahead. Another thing you need to do to overcome a bad attitude is by intentionally choosing the right attitude. You have to intentionally choose the right attitude. Regardless of the prevailing unfavorable circumstances that you have to choose the right attitude. Viktor Franklin, who survived the Holocaust, says that the last of human freedom is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. That is the last freedom to choose. That is the last freedom to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Another thing you need to do to overcome a bad attitude is by desiring to see a positive change in your life. You have to desire to see a positive change in your life. That is another way to choose to overcome a bad attitude. And another way to overcome a bad attitude is by approaching life with a sense of purpose, ambition. You have to approach life with a sense of purpose, ambition. Now, let's reflect again on how the bumblebee overcome its limitation in the face of scientific facts. You may have to encourage yourself and say to yourself that no matter what people throw at you, no human-made limitation will stop you from fulfilling your potential. You have to have the mindset of a bumblebee that no matter the limitation around you, you will always transcend the limitation that people have placed upon your potential. So in conclusion, here is my winning formula for an outstanding success in life. And what is the formula? It's so simple. Attitude plus aptitude equals altitude. Attitude plus aptitude equals altitude. Remember, a pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, but an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulties. Winston Churchill. That was a statement made by Winston Churchill. When you see a pessimist, you will always see problem, difficulties, trouble in every opportunity. But when you see an optimist, you will always see opportunity in every difficulty. So you have a choice to make, whether you want to be a pessimist or you want to be an optimist. And when you are an optimist, we are only asking you to choose the right attitude. And of course, when you are a pessimist, what have you done? You have chosen the wrong attitude. And I believe with this, you've been able to understand the role your attitude and your footprint plays in your growth as a growth-minded leader. Thank you. Do you have any question? If you have a question, please go ahead and ask your question. Somebody says this is very impactful. Thank you. We have question. Let's ask our question. I assumed we don't have questions. Is that right?